Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Closet Movie Rambles, where I talk about all the movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is The Wolfman from 1941, and it's about 1 hour and 9 minutes long. The movie starts with an introduction of the cast, and then opening to a book explaining about lycanthropy, which is the condition of a man turning into a werewolf, basically. And then cutting to John being driven to a castle to see his father. So this wasn't clear to me, I might have missed it, but either John is actually Larry's father or just father as in priest. And then they talk about the troubled past, and John leaves Larry behind and looks at Gwen through a telescope, a young lady, and it's super creepy, and he goes down to town to see her at her shop, being extra creepy, actually hitting on her, and it's just a weird thing to do, I guess. So he picks up or buys a wolf cane, and this will become important later in the story. So the wolf cane's head, the head of the wolf, is actually made out of silver. And he also gets told a story about werewolves, because for some reason this town is very suspicious about those kind of creatures. And a bit later, some gypsies arrive to town. One of them is actually played by Bela Lugosi, who actually played Dracula in the other Universal movie. And then Larry goes back to John so they can talk a bit. And later John goes out to pick up Gwen because he forcefully put her up for a date at 8 o'clock, which she not really did agree on, but Gwen is on the safe side, so she has her friend Jenny with her in case Larry does something stupid, I guess. So they go down to the gypsy camp where they're supposed to get their fortune told or something, or Jenny is about to. And Larry explains about the telescope to Gwen because she's thinking things are weird, that he knows so much about her. And Jenny goes to talk to the fortune teller, which is played by Bela Lugosi, and he does some great acting where he realized something really bad is about to happen because, spoilers, he's a werewolf. So Jenny runs out of the tent and the gypsy turns into a wolf and he actually kills Jenny. And Larry sees this and he beats the wolf, what he thinks is a wolf, with his silver cane, and he actually kills the werewolf. And he also gets bitten in the process. So unfortunately, as I said, Jenny doesn't survive the bite, and there's like a police investigation on figuring out what actually happened. And later the next morning, Larry's scar that he got from the bite is actually healed up. And then sometime later, Larry goes to check on the gypsy's dead body. And he is at like a cemetery, and there's like this old gypsy woman there. And she actually helped Larry get back to the mansion to John before. I forgot to tell about that. But anyway, the woman is there, and the priest is not happy about the way the gypsies are about the funeral rites, and the gypsies basically want to have a big feast instead of just having a sad church-going session. So what happens is there's like a big feast later on in the movie, but before that, Larry goes to see Gwen for the second time to talk about what happened and explains his innocent. And then Frank arrives. It's basically Gwen's love interest, not husband, but perhaps love interest. They're probably doing some shenanigans behind the scenes. So Larry gets the point and he leaves, and obviously Frank doesn't like him. So this is when the burial feast happening at the gypsy camp. So there's like a full-on party and everybody is invited because celebrating the death of a fellow. So Larry, Gwen, and Frank are there, and they do some things together. So they play some shooting gallery games together, and then Larry becomes uncomfortable and leaves. And he runs into gypsy woman from before, and she tells him that he's basically to become a werewolf. And Larry is not buying this, so he runs off. And Larry goes to talk to Gwen, and for some reason Frank has gone. There's some jealousy or something. And at this time the gypsies are breaking up camp, so they're leaving. So Larry takes this opportunity to kiss Gwen on the cheek, and she runs off. And then Larry has a flashback, and he gets scared and he runs home, and he starts to turn into a werewolf. So he gets a lot of hair on his feet and toes, and it's a gradual effect. And then he goes out in the middle of the night, fully turned to a werewolf, and he kills a gravedigger for no reason. And later the body is found the next morning by the police. So the next morning, Larry wakes up in his bed, fully normal, and he got the sign of the werewolf on his chest, and it's basically a poorly drawn star. But the police has followed their tracks to the house, and Larry and his friend, it's basically like an interview or something, and then Larry and his friend John is supposed to go to church, but since Larry is semi convicted of a murder, they can't prove it, I guess. People are just looking at him in the church alley as he walks in, and he just leaves because he becomes uncomfortable. And Larry is just told to get home and get some rest. Later that night, Larry goes out as a werewolf. So this is kind of a funny scene. He gets his foot stuck in a bear trap, and the gypsy woman arrives and turns him back into a human being. I don't know how she does that, but she does that. And then Larry runs off, hunted by the dogs or the police or the hunters. And he confronts a couple of them, I guess, and he lies about why he's out. Well, he's actually out there to just, hunting the werewolf as well. So he goes to see Gwen, and he basically tells her that he needs to leave. And then Larry runs off to his friend, John, to try to explain what happened and what he did. So this is also a funny scene where Larry actually lets John tie him down to a chair so he can't escape into the night again, as in werewolf form. You already know where this is going. So John goes to see the gypsy woman, and of course Larry gets loose from his chair because he's a werewolf. He can tear through bonds like that. And then the hunters are after him, and for some reason Gwen is there, and then John is in a fight with Larry, and John just basically kills Larry outright with his silver cane because he got it from the gypsy woman, I guess. And then the gypsy woman turns Larry back into a human and leaves. And then John is with Larry's dead body as the police arrives, and it's a super sad ending. I don't know what's up with these Universal movies and sad endings. So what do I think about this movie, The Wolfman from 1941? It was an okay movie. I like the acting of Lon Chaney Jr., not when he's in Wolfman form, but in his human form. There's some creepy things he does to women where he hits on them, and it's like maybe a thing of like the 40s, I guess. I also really like the acting of Bela Lugosi. For the little screen time he actually has, he does some really good emotional acting. He reminds me of the Japanese actor Toshiro Mifune from Seven Samurai, how you can convey a feeling without necessarily speaking the language or understanding Japanese. Kind of cool. So what's bad about this movie? I think the ending was a bit sad, but it's kind of brave also to have a bad ending. A lot of movies today are just sugar-coated and people just survive because of the sake. I don't like the way that the character of Larry actually kind of hits on Gwen, because it's really creepy. It might just be a thing of the past, like the 41s, the 40s, as you say, maybe, yeah. But it's just so creepy that pushing someone to say yes when they really just want to say no, and then you find out that she actually has like a love interest in Frank, and it's like, oh, Larry, you better back off. This is not in your favor at all. Maybe he didn't know about Frank or whatever. He's just new in town, trying out his friend's telescope, spying on women. It's just, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna stop there. So anyway, thanks for listening and or watching, and take care.